Oh boy, am I hungry. I want fries, a hamburger. No, make that 2 fries. You want anything? What's your special today?
Episode 8. Welcome to the Northwest Builders Lunch Hour, hosted by Truss Components. I'm here today with my friend Steve Poole, and we're going to talk about things that should bring some value to builders in the Northwest and imagine be a little entertaining at the same time. Steve works with Wahl Custom Homes, and he is the sales manager there. Today we are eating lunch from La Patrona here in Tumwater. And Steve has some build your own taco kit, it looks like. And I've got some enchiladas. So looking forward to digging in. I'm pretty hungry today. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
And let's see, what else do we have here? Aha, look at that. We got some cream and some salsa and some chips to go along with it too. So one of the realities of this is it's not going to be pretty. Because we're going to do what our mom told us not to do, we'll
Talk with your mouth full.
Yes, and maybe spill something on your shirt. So you get a nice white shirt there. But, we'll hope for the best on that. So, Steve, you and I go ways back, but I am really looking forward to this time and getting to know you even better.
Yeah.
So could you start out just by telling us, let's look way back in the history books, and what was it that led you to where you're at today, and let's hear all of the details that you're willing to share.
Okay. Well, mostly it was me moving to the Northwest from Reno, and I at the time owned my own marketing company. And I traveled all over 4 western states, plus into Canada. And we moved to Ocean Shores to be closer than Reno, because I was flying everywhere, driving forever. And when I got to Ocean Shores, lumber company, which was Arrow Lumber, heard that I was in town, and they wanted a salesman. And so they made me an offer, and I went to work for them, and it went pretty well. I mean, we did well, and which is how ultimately I met you, because we used to get Truss Components. And then about a year ago, Jeff Anderson, who was our GM, left.
Yeah.
And it really changed. And I was doing a lot more than just selling, and which I didn't want to be the GM. So So at the time, Derek made me an offer, Derek Wahl, and I came to work for him, and that's where I'm at now, which I really enjoy.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about your history prior to even ending up in the Northwest, because I know you've done a lot of different things, and I'm guessing that a lot of what you've learned through those experiences adds to what you're able to do at Wahl Custom Homes. And so, if you don't mind, take me all the way back to where you kind of started in your professional career and work me through the different iterations.
I was born to a small... No.
This is the story of a man named Jed.
Well, I grew up with, my dad was a painting contractor most of my life, and then a general contractor later. And I grew up with that. My first jobs were cleaning up job sites, and stuff like that. And then I went to college and actually got a degree in bovine genetics.
Really?
Yeah. And that's kind of what my parents said when I told them what my degree was in. And when I got out of school, there were no jobs because they had deregulated the dairy industry, and there was no jobs. So my dad was like, well, come home, go back to work.
Yeah.
for us. And
What was it about the bovine genetics that interested you in the first place?
it's kind of a silly story, but I was going to Cal Poly, and I shoot archery, and in order to stay eligible, at the collegiate level, you had to carry a certain load classes,
Right.
and I needed one more class. And I didn't want to travel clean across the campus, so I wanted to make sure my last class was in this one building, which happened to be the ag building.
Yep.
And so I looked, and there was literally 2 classes that weren't full in that building at the end of the day. And one was poultry unit management or something like that, and the other one was bovine genetics. And so I thought, well, I don't want to deal with chickens, so let's go with bovine genetics.
Yep.
And it just sort of clicked in my head. So I did more and more classes and eventually changed my major, and that's what I did. And it was all because I was being lazy and didn't want to walk across campus to go to practice.
That is awesome.
So
Yep. So to this day, are you like, when you see herds of cattle, do you think about how they ended up with traits that they have now and that sort of thing?
yeah, not so. Sometimes I guess I do if I see unique stuff. I do tend to judge because I also kind of got into cattle judging, and like they do at the fairs and everything for like the 4-H'ers and the future farmers and stuff. I got into that, so I do tend to look at them and I imagine the same way you do when you see trusses or see roof lines that aren't straight or
Oh yeah. Yep.
and but it was and then by the time the industry came back, I was out of it long enough that I just didn't feel comfortable, and to be honest with you, I was making really good money because I was a commission salesman, and I just didn't want to make a change.
Yeah. So go ahead and take a bite. I'll wait till you got a mouthful before I ask you the next question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So bovine genetics industry wasn't in a good spot. So at that point, you went back and worked for your dad again. Is that right?
I actually worked. My dad started his own paint stores.
Okay.
And because he couldn't find anybody that he liked, and so he decided that he was going to build his own.
Yeah.
And he did. So I came back and worked for him, and then ultimately became the general manager of his stores. And then
Multiple.
yeah, and then he sold them back to the company that he was buying the paint from, and they and so I just kind of branched out and got into industrial coatings, and so I did that, selling that for a while.
Yeah.
And then I actually, part of my company started selling archery equipment.
Okay.
Because I was going by
Industrial
all these
coatings and archery
Yeah,
equipment.
you're in a town, there's places to sell coatings and there's archery shops. So,
Yeah.
and it did okay.
And that was in Nevada at the time? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And and so I had my company, and then I kind of wanted to get out of the industry and was tired of it. And I had a friend that talked me into going to work for a mine company.
Okay.
And I was the head of their metallurgical labs. I have a pretty big chemistry background because of the genetics and everything. So.
Right.
And I did that, and I hated it because they work ridiculous, weird hours, and
Yeah.
And so, and then started my company back up again, and that's when we moved to Reno because we have a ranch in Ely, Nevada, which we still have, and then we were there.
So when you started your company back up again, is that the coatings and archery?
And no archery this time,
Okay.
just coatings and other industrial supplies.
Okay.
And then my wife decided she wanted to find a place to retire to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to go farther north because everything I had was up in the Northwest, from Portland north all the way into Canada.
Right, that was all the traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we started shopping, and we bought a place and built our own home in Ocean Shores, and then so that kind of leads us to here.
Yeah, awesome. So throughout all of that experience, I mean, you're working with different customers, different management styles, I imagine, between the the mine and the paint store and all that sort of thing. Are there any lessons that you learned from those that you could say, this is what I took from this place, this is what I took from this one? I think your dad was a pretty major influence on you as well.
Without a doubt. I mean, he gave my work ethic, the get things done. I learned selling that I was good at it. So I made good money at it, and kind of went from jobs, other than when I had my own company, that were commission only, and I did well at them.
Right.
But a lot of it was definitely my dad and his business partner, Bob.
Yeah.
It was kind of like my uncle.
So lots of different influences through that period. Now you've ended up at Wahl Construction. You were with Arrow for 3 years?
4 years.
4 years? Okay. And was that your first stint in construction, like contractor sales specifically?
Outside of the coating industry, yes.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious to hear from your perspective, as a salesperson selling into the construction business, working with a lot of contractors. What are some things that, we could generalize a little bit. What are some things that contractors tend to do well? What could they do better? What should they be doing differently in order to make their businesses and their relationships more successful? And we could generalize and talk about what they're just really doing horribly as well. I mean, that could be fun potentially.
Yeah, a lot of it's the way that contractors go at the building here in the Northwest is different than other areas. They do things differently. Some of them are kind of good ideas. Some of them are weird ideas. I mean, I don't know why they go in the order they go in.
Okay. And
sometimes the answers that contractors give you is because that's how they were taught. But it's coming from bigger cities like Las Vegas, which is was in that market for a long time.
Right.
They definitely, especially in Ocean Shores, it's definitely, smaller. I mean, some of the things that drive me crazy, like when a contractor shows up at the yard and he's got all his crew in his truck.
Oh.
Which is, where normally most people would take them all to the job, get them started, and then
Right.
go to the yard. But especially in a small community, because it's only 2 by 6 miles, so it's not like you got to drive for 40 minutes.
Right. And and then you have to be in a hurry because time is money, and they got all their guys sitting there.
Yeah, and then the other thing I see is that a lot of contractors don't have a really good knowledge of the working side of their company, and they end up pushing that off onto other people, like the lumber yards, doing all their takeoffs, and they don't vet anything, which is kind of different.
Yeah.
I grew up with, when I was a young kid, I used to, watch my dad work on plans at home,
He would do his takeoffs would he give them to his suppliers or just compare them to them?
No, he would give them because they didn't do, that was not something that was normal. And now it's definitely the norm.
Right.
And so, but with that, that's one of my jobs at Wahl is that I vet the takeoffs. And I, look for stuff that doesn't make sense, or, they have orders that have, floor joists and 2x10s, both. Well, it doesn't, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so, but a lot of contractors don't do that. So they end up getting a lot of the wrong things shipped to their job.
Right.
Or they get a lot of extra things shipped to their job, and then they get all upset. Well, in my opinion, they can't be upset because they didn't vet it. They should have caught it.
Either way, they're dealing with delays on the job site.
Absolutely.
Which, whether they brought all of their guys into the store with them or they dropped them off at the job site first, that delay is not only costing the project time, but their guys are out there not being productive as well. Yeah.
Yep.
And that could have been saved by spending a couple hours individually just going through the material list.
And then in the same thing, I see it with Derek. He goes through truss packages and stuff in the beginning. Make sure. I know a few other contractors, but there's some that don't.
Yeah.
They just show up and all right, let's do it. And again, I mean, there's problems or because we've caught problems where, unfortunately, I hate saying that truss companies can make mistakes.
Oh,
And
cut that part out.
and they don't know that the mistake was made until it's sitting on the job.
Right. Yeah.
And-
Yep. Yeah. And then, as a component supplier, I know that our general practice in the industry is to take care of those problems really quickly, but really quickly could be a couple of days where
Yep.
that project could have been sheeted and dried in. So, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Tell me a little bit, if you would, from a contractor sales perspective, and also as a salesperson for a contractor. What are your thoughts about smaller regional lumber suppliers versus box stores? Where should a builder be going to get that sort of product?
Well, we do both. And we buy from lumber yards, and some out of town, some in town. We buy a lot of small things from like Home Depot, and we, certainly appliances. Those things we buy just through Lowe's or Home Depot, whoever has the best deal.
Yeah.
But as far as the lumber packs go and stuff, it's rare that we ever buy from a big box store for lumber. The only reason would be like when the sheet goods were going crazy last year.
Right.
We would look where we could and pull pallets from different places to save money. But
That was a very interesting dynamic.
yeah, when you see OSB at $80 a sheet, that was pretty interesting. But we shop pretty hard. And that's another one of my jobs.
Yeah.
Is that I send bids out to different suppliers, and to see who can give us the best deal, and then we weigh it against service. Obviously, out of town lumber yards are a little harder for returns and for mistakes,
Right.
and stuff. But so we use, like I said, both.
Yeah. So if there was if part of our audience was a manager of a lumber yard or a lumber salesperson at a regional yard or even an independent, is there anything that you could tell them that might help them better compete with those larger stores?
Well, one thing, which seems to be a trend going the other way right now, is actually having outside guys versus inside salespeople.
So by a trend going away, you see less and less of an outside salesperson.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the people that show up at our office and in our jobs tend to get more work than the people who just call us.
Right.
And because it puts a kind of a personal dynamic there. And if they look like they do a good job and they're good people, then we use them.
Sure.
And as long as their price obviously can be where it needs to be. But so I see that trend going the other way. I see more and more just inside salespeople, and that is, I don't know. It's not a good trend, I don't think.
Right. Do you see any of the bigger guys having outside salespeople?
Yes, like we see in one of the bigger ones in these areas, but they don't tend to go to shores that often. Some people act like Ocean Shores is the end of the earth, and plus a little bit. And it's not the end of the earth. We can see it from there. But
Yeah. If you're in Ocean Shores, Westport is the end of the earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That's got a little kick to it. That's also there. I don't know if you want to give that a shot, but if you want your forehead to sweat a little, I'd go for it.
but on camera. So that's one trend. The other one is just some yards have pretty much everything you need. to build. And then a lot of them, though, have now or where things have to all be special ordered.
Right.
And so sometimes it's a time issue. The other thing is falls into returns. And, where we tend to, like on decking products and that kind of thing, we tend to over-order a little bit so that we don't run out when the guys are doing the install.
Yep. Again, that time on the job site.
Right. And then if it's special ordered, then they're less prone to want to take it back. And so, and it's kind of weird for us because on customs, because it can cover the gamut of colors and things like that and styles.
Right.
Versus a spec home builder, they pretty much will probably carry the same two colors throughout.
Right. They can just use it on a different project.
So that's one thing, and it seems like it's more and more like Simpson products, hangers and stuff that used to be in stock now or special order.
Yeah.
And so, which is fine as long as the pack that we order is a week ahead. But it's when you realize that you're one short, or it can be a problem. Right.
Interesting. What? So moving on to Wahl Custom Homes a little bit, and what you're doing now. You said that you shop for the product. That's something that I see. Some contractors are just very loyal and tend to pick their suppliers and just move forward with those.
Yep.
Others seem to shop every project. What would be your take on how to create more loyalty as a supplier? How could I create more loyalty with my clients? And as a contractor, how does that loyalty versus shopping benefit or hinder your operations?
Well, I think that, one, the loyalty part, which we really want to have. We'd love to have one lumberyard, one truss company, one, for everything we do, because it just builds that relationship even better. But the problem that we run into is that we get some that are not very proactive on their pricing. So as the pricing fluctuates, they don't make changes. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yep.
But and some that tend to go down slower than they went up. That's a thing that we remember. I mean, we remember the people that were calling us up and saying, hey, lumber's coming down. I'm going to make some adjustments to your jobs.
Right.
Versus the ones that don't say anything, and we pay the higher price longer than we probably should have.
Right.
So, and that's part of being, a good partner in the construction of homes versus just the place that we buy lumber.
Right.
And then a lot of it, again, I think falls back to that same thing about outside guys. I mean, or girls. We tend to buy from the people that show up on our jobs.
Yeah.
And that goes for distributors and for lumber yards.
Right.
And so, as far as building that loyalty, it's definitely just a personal thing. I mean, it's being there, and and you make mistakes, which happen.
Yep.
You take care of them right away, and you don't. We get things like well, there's other orders ahead of you, but it was a mistake. And they have to try to make some adjustments. And then we have some that make them immediately. And those are the things we remember.
Yep.
And so
it sounds like, to paraphrase what you're saying a little bit, and not to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're working with a supplier that is proactive with their pricing, responsive when there are issues or not issues, as a builder, it benefits you to have that single contact. It's more efficient, all that sort of stuff. And it's just really kind of on the supplier to make sure that they're making the adjustments going along so that you can be comfortable being loyal like that.
Absolutely. I mean, things like pickups on job sites. When they're done framing, we want to have a pickup. And we don't want the stuff sitting there forever. And it's hard on the supplier, too, when it sits there forever because it starts turning gray and looking ugly.
Right, maybe tough to resell, yeah.
Yeah, and so where we need, like when we call for pickups, ideally they get out there and get it taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some suppliers that we fight with it. I mean, and it shouldn't have to be that way.
Right.
And so I'm like anybody. I don't want to fight with people. So the people that make it so I don't have to fight with them tend to get more work.
Sure.
So
Makes sense. So we were talking a little bit off camera earlier about window supply and that sort of thing. Obviously, over the last couple of years, everyone has experienced constraints in the supply chain.
Oh yeah.
What are you seeing out there at this point, and what are you guys doing in order to help make sure that you have what you need when you need it in order to keep projects moving?
Well, like the example of Windows. I mean, everybody knows that Windows went crazy, and we're out 13, 14, 15, 16 weeks.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had to put window orders in before we put in our plans of the city for building permits.
Yeah.
Which is really bizarre.
That's taking some faith that the project's going to move forward.
Right, and then we're now they're definitely back to more reasonable time.
Mm-hmm.
It's we tend to use one supplier like on Windows because they are very if they break something on the way to the job, which happens, it's glass.
Right.
They're very, very quick to get it fixed and get a new window coming.
Mm-hmm.
If we break something on the job, it's not as quick. But
Right.
but that's a problem there. But because we don't want glass sitting around waiting, and we don't let them on the job before trusses go up, because obviously you don't want to work overhead of glass underneath you.
Right.
So so they end up in our warehouse, which is surprisingly big and surprisingly full with jobs.
Yep.
And especially on the bigger customs, because there's a lot of windows, a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And so, but I check on the time frames of the window companies and the door companies almost weekly, just to make sure where they're at, if they're 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever.
Right.
And then I put it in a program that I have that tells me, time to order windows for this job, or time to order interior doors. Or
What program do you use?
I basically use Sheets.
Google Sheets.
And I build my own thing.
So kind of a critical path, or?
Yeah, and it's I'm getting used to Sheets. That's new to me, because we use all Google stuff, and I'm used to like Excel, and they are not the same thing. But it's
might look similar.
Yeah. But there's some actually really cool things with it too, though. But they so like I said, I build my own things that tend to prompt me and remind me things that like Derek can look at really quick, because I share them to him, and he can just look at them really fast and see where something's at, or that kind of thing. So but in order for us, like I said, we got to stay on how long things take. And that goes for everything. Trusses, windows, doors, I-joists, and it's because obviously, and especially on the custom side, homeowners expect us to be really close to the time that they want their house built by, that we agreed to. And so we're big delays in like windows and things like that, bring the job to a screeching halt. And so not good for everybody.
How many homes a year does Wahl do?
This year we're gonna be probably 25.
Okay, about 2 a month, roughly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we we at times we push a little harder than that, but it's typically we try to stay there.
Right.
It just gets to be too much.
Yeah.
This meal was brought to you by Truss Components of Washington. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next hot dish. And feel free to invite a friend for lunch next time.